The wind out here on the high Wyoming plains doesn't just blow, it screams. It tears through the buffalo grass like a serrated knife, searching for any weakness in a man's resolve. Chief Soaring Eagle knew that sound well. He'd spent 40 years listening to it, letting it harden his skin and sharpen his eyes. But today, the wind carried something else. Something that smelled like iron and blood. He sat motionless on his Mustang, a ghost painted against the endless gray sky. His small band of Cheyenne had split off from the main tribe weeks ago, refusing the reservation orders, choosing freedom over the slow death of confinement. They were hungry, they were tired, and they were being hunted. Soaring Eagle was miles from his hidden camp, tracking a thinning herd of elk when he heard it. The crack of a pistol. It wasn't a hunter's shot. It was rhythmic, deliberate. A warning. He didn't hesitate. He guided his horse into a dense thicket of cottonwoods, sliding from the saddle with the silence of a falling leaf. He crept forward, parting the branches just enough to see the nightmare unfolding in the clearing below. And what he saw made his blood freeze in his veins. 3 cavalry soldiers in Union blue stood in a triangle. In the center wasn't an enemy combatant or a dangerous outlaw. It was a covered wagon, canvas torn, one wheel shattered. And dragged into the mud before them was a woman. She had hair the color of rusted copper and a face pale with terror. But she wasn't screaming. She was staring up at the tallest soldier, a man with a jagged scar running down his jawline, with a look of pure, unadulterated defiance. "I'll ask you one last time, Mrs. Bennett," the scarred soldier spat, holstering his smoking pistol. "Where is the book?" Soaring Eagle frowned. The book? This wasn't a random encounter. This wasn't just soldiers having their way with a traveler. This was an interrogation. "I told you," the woman said, her voice shaking but loud. "It burned with the cabin. You killed James for nothing." The soldier laughed, a dry, rattling sound. "We didn't kill your husband for nothing, darlin'. We killed him because he was a traitor who wrote down things he shouldn't have. Now, you're gonna tell me where that ledger is, or you're gonna join him." He drew a knife, a long, curved Bowie knife that glinted in the weak winter sun. "Grab her," he ordered the other 2 men. They lunged. The woman kicked out, catching one in the shin, but the other grabbed her hair, yanking her head back, exposing her throat to the blade. Soaring Eagle had a choice. If he fired, he gave away his position. He risked bringing the entire U.S. Army down on his starving band. The smart thing, the leader thing, was to turn around, right away, and let the white man's violence consume its own. But honor is a heavy thing to carry. He didn't think. He moved. Soaring Eagle raised his Winchester rifle, inhaled the freezing air, and squeezed the trigger. The shot thundered across the plains. The soldier holding the woman's hair jerked backward, his hat flying off as the bullet grazed his temple. He shouted, stumbling into the mud. Chaos erupted. "Contact! Left flank!" The scarred sergeant screamed, spinning around. But Soaring Eagle was already moving. He didn't stay in the trees. He vaulted onto his horse and burst from the cover, screaming a war cry that had echoed in these hills for 1,000 years. It was a bluff, a desperate, terrifying bluff. He needed them to think he was a war party of 50, not one man with a half-empty rifle. He rode straight at them, firing from the hip. Dirt sprayed into the soldiers' faces. The horses reared, panicked by the sudden assault. "Retreat! It's an ambush!" the 3rd soldier yelled, struggling to control his mount. They didn't want a fight. They wanted an execution. And they weren't prepared for a warrior who rode like a demon possessing a beast. The sergeant fired a wild shot that buzzed past Soaring Eagle's ear, but his men were already breaking, spurring their horses toward the ridge. "This ain't over, Bennett!" the sergeant screamed over his shoulder, his eyes locking with Soaring Eagle's for a split second, a promise of violence, before he spurred his horse and galloped after his men. Soaring Eagle didn't chase them. He pulled his horse to a sliding halt, rifle still raised, chest heaving. Silence rushed back into the clearing, heavier than before. He looked down at the woman. She was scrambling backward, mud staining her dress, eyes wide. She looked at the retreating dust cloud, then up at him. She didn't see a savior. She saw another threat. Get away, she gasped, reaching for a fallen branch. I don't have anything left to steal. Soaring Eagle stared at her. He lowered the rifle slowly. Not here to steal, he said, his voice gravelly, unused to the English words he hadn't spoken in years. Here to stop death. Sarah Bennett stared at him, her chest heaving. She saw the feathers in his hair, the paint on his horse, the lethal calm in his dark eyes. They said there were more of you, she whispered. Soaring Eagle shook his head. Just me. Sarah looked around the empty plains. You attacked 3 armed soldiers. Alone? Bad men, he grunted. Make loud noise. Easy to scare. He dismounted, his moccasins sinking into the half-frozen mud. He approached her slowly, hands open. You hurt? I'm fine, she said, dusting herself off, regaining some of that steel he'd seen earlier. But you need to go. That was Sergeant Mills. He's not just a soldier. He's a hunter. He'll come back, and he'll bring a regiment. He hunt you for book, Soaring Eagle said. Sarah froze. The color drained from her face completely. You speak English well. Listen well, too, he replied. What is this book? Why soldiers kill husband? Sarah hesitated. She looked at her broken wagon, then back at the ridge where the soldiers had disappeared. She realized she had exactly 0 options. It's a ledger, she said quietly. My husband, James. He was a supply officer. He found out that the localized famines among the tribes weren't natural. The army. Mills and his superiors. They've been intercepting the food shipments meant for the reservations, selling them for profit to mining camps. Soaring Eagle felt a cold fury ignite in his gut. His people were starving. His own children were gnawing on boiled leather some nights. And these men were stealing the treaty rations for gold? He wrote it all down, Sarah continued, her voice gaining strength. Dates, names, amounts. Mills found out. They burned our cabin to find it. They think I have it. Do you? Soaring Eagle asked. Sarah looked him dead in the eye. I sewed the pages into the lining of my petticoats, she whispered. I'm wearing the evidence right now. Soaring Eagle looked at the ridge. The wind was picking up again, howling a warning. Mills come back, he said, with many men. You cannot stay here. I have a brother in Cheyenne, she said, if I can get there. Cheyenne is 3 days' ride. Soaring Eagle cut in. Wagon is broken. You walk, you die. Soldiers find you in 1 hour. Then what do I do? She pleaded, the desperation finally cracking her voice. Soaring Eagle looked south, toward the hidden valley where his band waited. To bring a white woman there was forbidden. To bring a white woman hunted by the army was suicide, but to leave her was to let the truth die with her. You come with me, he said. Sarah blinked. To your tribe? Yes. They won't accept me. No, Soaring Eagle agreed bluntly. They will not. But I am chief. They will listen. He extended a hand. We ride now, or we die here. Sarah Bennett looked at the hand of the man she had been taught to fear her entire life. Then she looked at the horizon where her husband's murderers waited. She took his hand. The ride to the hidden camp was a blur of speed and tension. Soaring Eagle didn't take the trails. He rode through riverbeds and over rocky shale where hooves left no prints. He knew Mills was a tracker, but Soaring Eagle was a ghost. Sarah clung to his waist, the smell of wood smoke and leather filling her senses. She'd never been this close to a native warrior. She expected savagery. Instead, she felt a rigid, disciplined tension in his frame. He was constantly scanning, calculating. They crested a ridge as the sun began to bleed into the western horizon, painting the sky in bruises of purple and red. Below them lay the camp. It was small, too small. Maybe 15 teepees huddled in a canyon, hidden from the wind. Stay close, Soaring Eagle commanded as they descended. Do not speak unless I tell you. As they rode in, the camp went silent. Conversations died. Children stopped playing and ran to their mothers. Dogs barked, hackles raised. Dozens of eyes locked onto Sarah. She felt the weight of their hatred. It wasn't aggressive, it was a heavy, suffocating blanket of resentment. To them, she was the face of the enemy. The face of the people stealing their land, killing their buffalo, starving their babies. Soaring Eagle dismounted and helped her down. A man stepped forward. He was older, with gray braids and a face like a dried riverbed. This was Gray Wolf, the medicine man. He spoke in Cheyenne, his voice sharp, accusatory. He pointed a bony finger at Sarah, then slashed it across the air, a sign of severing. Soaring Eagle responded calmly, his voice deep and resonant. He gestured to the north, miming the soldiers, the gunfight. Gray Wolf spat on the ground near Sarah's boots. "He says you bring death," Soaring Eagle translated, not looking at her. "He says the spirits told him a white shadow would lead the wolves to our door." "Is he right?" Sarah asked softly. "Maybe," Soaring Eagle admitted. "But spirits do not carry rifles. Mills does." He led her to a teepee near the center of the circle. "My sister, Swift Deer, will watch you. Stay inside. Do not come out." "Where are you going?" Sarah asked, panic rising. "To set guards," he said darkly, "and to pray that I have not just killed my people to save one stranger." Sarah watched him go, feeling a knot of guilt tighten in her stomach. She entered the teepee. Inside, a woman was grinding corn. She looked up, her eyes hard. This was Swift Deer. She didn't smile. She didn't offer a greeting. She simply pointed to a pile of buffalo robes in the corner. "Sit." Sarah sat. Hours passed. Night fell like a hammer. The camp was quiet, but it wasn't a peaceful quiet. It was the silence of a held breath. Sarah couldn't sleep. Every snap of a twig outside sounded like a cavalry boot. She fingered the hem of her dress, feeling the crinkle of the papers sewn inside. The names. The dates. The proof of corruption that could topple a command. Was it worth it? Was it worth the lives of these people? Suddenly, the flap of the teepee burst open. It wasn't Soaring Eagle. It was a young brave, his face painted with black stripes of war. He held a knife. Sarah scrambled back against the teepee wall. "What do you want?" The brave didn't speak English. He lunged. Sarah rolled, the knife slashing the buffalo robe where she had just been. She screamed. The brave grabbed her ankle, dragging her toward the fire pit in the center of the tent. He raised the knife again. Bang! The teepee flap ripped open as Soaring Eagle barreled in. He didn't use a weapon. He used his shoulder, slamming into the young brave with the force of a charging bull. The brave flew backward, crashing into the support poles. The teepee shuddered. Soaring Eagle stood over him, chest heaving, eyes blazing with a fury Sarah hadn't seen even during the gunfight. He shouted something in Cheyenne, a command so guttural it shook the ground. The young brave scrambled up, looking defiant but terrified. He spat a few words at Soaring Eagle, pointed at Sarah, and then ducked out of the tent. Soaring Eagle turned to Sarah. "You hurt?" "No," she gasped, clutching her chest. "Who was that?" "Red Hawk," Soaring Eagle said, his face grim. "He lost his wife to soldiers last winter. He thinks killing you balances the scales." "Does everyone here want me dead?" "Many," Soaring Eagle said. "That is why we must leave." "Now?" "Now," he said. "Scouts returned. Mills is not waiting for morning. He is tracking the horses. He has dogs." Sarah's blood ran cold. "Dogs?" "They are 5 miles out," Soaring Eagle said. "If we stay, my band dies. If we run together, they follow us and leave the band alone." "You're using us as bait," Sarah realized. "Yes," Soaring Eagle said, checking his rifle. "We lead the wolves away from the sheep." "Where do we go?" Soaring Eagle looked at her, and for the first time, a flicker of something like respect crossed his face. "Into the Badlands," he said. "Where horses cannot go, where only ghosts walk." They left the horses behind. It was the only way to lose the dogs. They waded into the freezing creek that bordered the camp and walked upstream for 2 miles in the pitch black, numbing their legs until they felt like blocks of wood. When they finally climbed onto the bank, they were in a landscape from a nightmare. The Badlands. Twisted spires of rock, deep ravines and unstable shale that could crumble under a misplaced step. "Keep moving," Soaring Eagle whispered. "Stopping is freezing." They walked for hours. Sarah's dress froze stiff around her ankles. Her breath came in ragged gasps, but she didn't complain. She thought of James. She thought of the ledger. "Soaring Eagle," she whispered around dawn. "Why are you doing this? You could have let Red Hawk kill me. The soldiers would have found my body and left." Soaring Eagle didn't stop walking. "Red Hawk has anger. Anger is easy. Honor is hard." "Is that it? Just honor?" He stopped then. He turned to look at her, silhouetted against the gray dawn. "My son," he said quietly. "He is in the spirit world. Died of the coughing sickness last moon. We had no medicine, no food, because the shipments never came." Sarah's hand flew to her mouth. "Your book," Soaring Eagle said, pointing to her skirt. "It has the names of the men who killed my son. I do not save you for you, Sarah Bennett. I save you to kill them." The twist hit Sarah like a physical blow. He wasn't a noble savage from a storybook saving a damsel. He was a grieving father on a mission of vengeance. The ledger wasn't just justice to him. It was a weapon. "Then let's make sure we use it," Sarah said, her voice steeling. "Good," he nodded. "Because they are here." Sarah spun around. On the ridge above them, silhouetted against the rising sun, sat a rider. It wasn't a soldier. It was an Indian scout, a Crow scout working for the army. He raised a rifle and fired a signal shot into the air. Crack! "Run!" Soaring Eagle yelled. They scrambled down a shale slope, sliding uncontrollably toward a narrow canyon floor. Rocks tore at Sarah's hands. Dust filled her mouth. They hit the bottom and scrambled behind a cluster of boulders just as bullets began to pepper the ground around them. "Pinned down!" Soaring Eagle hissed, peeking over the rock. "Crow Scout means the main force is close. Mills brought help." "How many?" "Too many." Soaring Eagle looked at the canyon walls. They were boxed in. The only way out was a narrow fissure in the rock face about 50 yards away. "We have to make the gap," he said. "We'll be cut down," Sarah argued. "I will draw fire," Soaring Eagle said calmly. "You run." "No!" Sarah grabbed his arm. "You can't." "It is the only way. Give me the book." "What?" "Give me the book," he demanded. "If you die, I take it to Cheyenne. If I die, you take it. Separate." Sarah hesitated, then ripped the hem of her petticoat. She pulled out the packet of oilskin-wrapped papers. She handed half to him. "We both carry it," she said. "That way they can't kill the truth with one bullet." Soaring Eagle looked at the papers, then at her. He smiled. A small, fierce thing. "Good," he said. He vaulted over the rock. He didn't run away from the shooters. He ran sideways, drawing their aim, firing his Winchester rapidly to suppress them. "Go!" he screamed. Sarah ran. She sprinted across the open ground, her lungs burning. Bullets whizzed past her like angry hornets. She heard the impact of lead on stone inches from her head. She reached the fissure and squeezed inside. It was a narrow crack, barely wide enough for a person. She turned back. Soaring Eagle was halfway there. But the Crow Scout on the ridge had adjusted his aim. Sarah saw the puff of smoke before she heard the sound. Soaring Eagle jerked mid-stride. His leg buckled. He went down. "No!" Sarah screamed. He scrambled to cover behind a fallen log, clutching his thigh. Blood darker than the shale began to pool beneath him. The firing stopped. "Give it up, Chief!" Mills's voice boomed from the canyon rim. "We got you boxed! Send out the girl and the papers, and I might let you die quick!" Soaring Eagle looked at Sarah, hidden in the fissure 20 yards away. He shook his head slightly. "Stay hidden." "Come and get them!" Soaring Eagle roared back. "Have it your way!" Mills yelled. "Burn 'em out!" Sarah watched in horror as a flaming bundle of pitch and rags was thrown over the rim. It landed in the dry brush near Soaring Eagle's position. Then another. And another. Smoke began to billow instantly. The dry canyon was becoming an oven. Soaring Eagle was trapped. He couldn't run on his wounded leg. The fire was closing in. Sarah looked at the papers in her hand. She was safe. She could slip away through the fissure, make her way to Cheyenne, and deliver the half of the evidence she had. It would be enough to convict them. She could survive. But she looked at the man who had ridden into a firing squad for her, the man who had left his people to save her. She looked at the heavy revolver she had taken from her husband's trunk but never fired. She made a choice. She didn't run away. She stepped out of the fissure. "Hey!" she screamed, her voice echoing off the canyon walls. The soldiers on the ridge turned. Mills looked down, surprised. "Over here, you son of a—" Sarah yelled. She raised the revolver and fired blindly at the ridge. The shot went wild, but it did its job. It drew their eyes. "Get her!" Mills shouted. The soldiers shifted their aim. In that second of distraction, Soaring Eagle moved. Ignoring the agony in his leg, he rolled away from the fire, dragging himself toward the fissure where Sarah had been. But she wasn't there anymore. She was running toward him. She grabbed his arm, hauling him up. "Lean on me!" "You foolish woman," he grunted, stumbling. "Shut up and move." They hobbled together, a three-legged race against death, as bullets chewed up the ground at their heels. The fire roared behind them, creating a wall of smoke that actually helped shield them from the shooters. They threw themselves into the darkness of the fissure just as the brush where they had been standing exploded into a wall of flame. They collapsed in the dark, coughing, gasps tearing at their throats. They were alive, but they were trapped in a cave system, wounded, with an army waiting outside. "Leg?" Sarah asked, breathless. Soaring Eagle probed the wound. "Bullet went through. Bone is whole, but I cannot run." "We don't need to run," Sarah said, looking deeper into the cave. She felt a draft, cool air hitting her sweaty face. "Wind," Soaring Eagle noted. "This tunnel. It goes through." "To where?" "The other side of the ridge," he said. "Behind them." A grim smile spread across his face. "Now," he whispered, "we hunt them." The tunnel was a nightmare of claustrophobia. They crawled for what felt like miles. Sarah led, holding a lucifer match every few minutes to check for drop-offs. Soaring Eagle dragged his bad leg, gritting his teeth against the pain, leaving a smear of blood on the stone floor. "Tell me," Sarah whispered in the dark, "what happens if we win? If we get the ledger to the general in Cheyenne?" "The blue coats go to prison?" Soaring Eagle asked, hopefully, "and the starvation stops." "For a while," Soaring Eagle said, his voice echoing. "But more will come. The hunger for land is a sickness without a cure." "Then why fight?" "Because," Soaring Eagle said, "survival is not about winning forever. It is about living one more day." They saw light ahead. They emerged on a high ledge overlooking the plateau where Mills and his men were camped. It was night again. The soldiers had set up a perimeter around the canyon entrance, waiting for the fire to burn out so they could recover the bodies. They were relaxed, drinking coffee, confident their prey was roasting. Mills was sitting by the fire, laughing with the Crow Scout. "Easy money," Mills was saying. "We tell the colonel it was a renegade band. We tried to save the woman, but the savages burned her. Tragically." Sarah felt the revolver heavy in her pocket. She looked at Soaring Eagle. He had his rifle. He had cleaned the dirt from the mechanism. "2 shots," Soaring Eagle whispered. "I take the scout. You take the horses." "The horses. Panic the horses," he instructed. "Without horses, they are stranded. We ride to Cheyenne." "I'm a terrible shot," Sarah admitted. "Don't shoot the horses," he said. "Shoot the sky. Horses hate thunder." Soaring Eagle settled the rifle stock against his shoulder. He breathed out, slow and steady. Crack! The Crow Scout pitched forward into the fire. Before the soldiers could even drop their coffee cups, Sarah fired 3 rapid shots into the air. Bang! 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 The picket line erupted. The army horses, already spooked by the earlier fire, tore their tethers. They stampeded through the camp, trampling tents and supplies. "Contact! Rear!" Mills screamed, diving for cover. But the chaos was absolute. Dust, darkness, and 2,000 pounds of panicked horseflesh tearing through the campsite. "Go!" Soaring Eagle grunted. They scrambled down the backside of the ledge toward where the soldiers' horses were scattering. Soaring Eagle whistled, a sharp, piercing sound. One of the army horses, a black stallion, slowed and turned, ears pricked. It was trained, but the whistle was universal. Soaring Eagle hobbled toward it, speaking soft, calming words in Cheyenne. The horse shivered but stood still. He grabbed the mane and swung up, screaming silently as his leg took the weight. He reached down for Sarah. She swung up behind him. "Hold tight," he said. They thundered away into the night, leaving Mills and his men stranded, footsore, and furious in the middle of nowhere. They reached Cheyenne 2 days later. They looked like apparitions. Sarah's dress was in tatters, stained with mud and blood. Soaring Eagle was pale, feverish from infection, tied to the saddle to keep from falling. They didn't go to the fort. They went to the house with the white fence. Thomas Bennett, Sarah's brother, opened the back door to find a nightmare on his doorstep. "Sarah?" he gasped. "Get him inside," Sarah commanded, her voice raspy. "He saved me. Twice." Thomas didn't ask questions. He was a doctor. He saw the wound, the fever. He and a servant carried the semi-conscious chief into the parlor and laid him on the divan. "The leg is bad," Thomas said, cutting away the buckskin. "Gangrene is setting in. I might have to take it." "No," Sarah said, grabbing her brother's arm. "He is a warrior. A warrior without a leg is dead. You save it, Thomas. You save it, or I swear I will burn this house down." Thomas looked at the fire in his sister's eyes, eyes that had left civilized and returned wild. "I'll do my best," he promised. For 3 days, Soaring Eagle hovered between worlds. Sarah didn't leave his side. She bathed his forehead. She changed the dressings. She read to him from the ledger, the names of the men who would pay. On the 4th day, the fever broke. Soaring Eagle opened his eyes. He looked at the floral wallpaper, the ticking clock, the soft bed. Then he looked at Sarah, sleeping in a chair next to him, the revolver resting in her lap. "You are a terrible guard," he rasped. Sarah jerked awake. She saw his clear eyes and burst into tears. "You're alive," she choked out. "Hard to kill," he smiled weakly. "I delivered the ledger," she said, wiping her eyes. "Thomas gave it to a federal marshal. They arrested Mills this morning. He was trying to board a train to San Francisco." "And the food?" Soaring Eagle asked. "The marshal wired Washington. Emergency rations are being sent to the reservation immediately, under armed guard to ensure they arrive." Soaring Eagle closed his eyes, letting out a long breath. "My son rests now." 2 weeks later, Soaring Eagle stood on the porch. He leaned on a cane Thomas had carved for him, but he stood tall. His horse was waiting. "You don't have to go," Sarah said, standing in the doorway. "It's not safe. The winter is coming." "My people wait," Soaring Eagle said. "They do not know if I live or die. Let me send word. Stay until spring." Soaring Eagle turned to her. He looked at this woman who had ridden through hell with him. He reached out and touched a lock of her auburn hair. "You have fire in you, Sarah Bennett," he said. "Cheyenne fire. Will I see you again?" she asked, her voice small. "The plains are wide," he said, "but paths cross for those who look." He mounted his horse with difficulty, wincing, but settled into the saddle with natural grace. "Watch the wind," he said. "I will," she promised. He turned the horse and rode toward the north, toward the snow-capped peaks, toward his people. Sarah watched him until he was just a speck against the endless blue sky. She didn't go back inside immediately. She stood on the porch, listening. The wind was blowing. But it didn't scream anymore. It sang. If you enjoyed this story of survival and justice, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a story from the frontier. What would you have done in Sarah's shoes? Let me know in the comments below. Stay safe out there.